Let's call the Jenks Planning Commission meeting to order for Thursday, March 4th of 2021. May I have a roll call, please?
Bowman.
Here.
David Randolph.
Here.
John Brown.
Here.
Scott West.
Here.
Leon Davis. Jeffrey Byer.
Here.
Carol Minden.
Here. Okay, looks like almost everyone's here. May I hear a request to approve the minutes from February 4th of 2021?
So moved.
Craig Bowman.
There's a 2020 reference. It should be 2021 in the first item.
Is that a second, Greg?
No.
President.
Commissioner Randolph has a point of order.
Oh.
Can you hear me all right?
I think that's fine.
The first item.
We can't hear you, David.
How about now? Can you hear me all right?
Barely.
Okay, I'll speak loud. There's the first item was January 7th, 2020. It should be 2021. That was my only comment.
I think I caught
Just in the printed version that was distributed, it may have been fixed after that.
Was that a date issue?
Yeah, the year is wrong. Yeah.
Oh, the request to approve minutes from January?
yes.
That's right.
Okay. All right.
Good catch.
Okay, we had a motion and a second. Brandon?
Craig Bowman.
Yes.
David Randolph.
Yes.
John Brown.
Yes.
Scott West.
Yes.
Jeffrey Byer.
Yes.
Carol Minden.
Yes. Okay, first item on the agenda is JL 21-353, request by Blue Reynolds for a lot split for Gateway First Bank to the general location of 100 South Gateway Place West. Marseille?
Thank you.
I have an echo.
We
Carrie,
might need to get everybody to mute.
Carrie, are you familiar? Are we good?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. This item is part of the Gateway project, the Gateway Bank. You all have seen it a couple of times. It's gone through the PUD process. It's gone through the ARC approval, and now they're officially lot splitting it. It was said all along that this would be the process. So this project is Gateway Plaza, and they're building Gateway Bank. There is, the original PUD was PUD 83, and it was amended to allow for a bank in February of 2020. It was recommended for approval by Planning Commission, and then on March 3rd, 2020, City Council did approve. There have been no public comments. Lot splits are not given a public notice. On page 7 of your staff report, you'll see that the conditions of approval by City Council were included. When you go down to the middle of the page, it says staff evaluation and recommendation. And staff believes the lot split is in compliance with all city requirements and meets the expectation presented within PUD 83B. Approval of the lot split is necessary to the completion of this project. And there are two conditions following approval tonight and assuming there will be approval at City Council. Number 1 is submit deeds to be stamped by the city planner before applicant files deeds with Tulsa County, and provide the city planner with a copy of those recorded deeds. Staff does recommend approval of JL 21-353 If you look down at the bottom of page 7, there's a map that shows the Tulsa County parcel data, and the lot that is in question is highlighted in blue. If you turn the page, figure 2 shows you PUD 83B. So this is the amended PUD, and then on the right side of that same exhibit, it shows where the original one was. So originally, development area A was the entire northern portion of PUD 83, and when they came back and amended it for the bank, they split it off. They let the road split it, and they have area A2, area A1, and development area A1 on the other side of the street. I went ahead and took some Google shots. Most of you are probably very, very familiar with this intersection. You can see the southeast view from the Highway 75 access. If you look on page 9, figure 4 shows the area over. There's a bright yellow arrow kind of pointing. So once you come down Douglas, it's over to the right. And then I did an aerial view for you. If you continue looking in your packet, it shows the legal descriptions. And then on page 12 of 64, it actually shows the tract A and tract B for this lot split. We contacted Tulsa County Land Records today and asked some questions. And of course, lot splits are different than some of the other items, but this gets filed at the county level once the transaction has taken place. And then we'll get a copy of that. The Tulsa County requires that we stamp those deeds, and the applicant is Mr. Lou Reynolds, who is present this evening. If you have any questions for him. Otherwise, staff recommends approval, and I have no further comments at this time.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the commissioners?
Marseille, I had one question. This is John. On the survey where they did all of the meets and bounds calculations on the new tract A is proposed, is that going to be usable space for development since it's kind of an odd shaped lot with the curve coming up there? Is it going to be large enough to for anybody to put anything in there with setback requirements?
Are you talking about for the in front of where the bank would sit?
Yeah, for the part that's being parceled off for tract A, will that be usable after that?
I believe they use the entire site. Lou may have a better, I apologize, I should have put the original site plan in here. At one point I was going to, and I guess I forgot. So I believe that the entire north parcel is dedicated to the bank, and it's for landscaping and other amenities.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions?
Marseille, just to ask the obvious, this doesn't impact utilities and the ability to serve each lot after it's split.
No, sir.
No,
That
it does not.
Okay, great, thanks.
I take it that's Lou in the background giving us some support.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Does the applicant wish to address the commission? Mr. Reynolds?
No, ma'am. We are in agreement with staff report. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer it.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve JL 21-353.
Second.
Eric Bowman,
Yes.
David Randolph,
Yes.
John Brown,
Yes.
Scott West,
Yes.
Jeffrey Bye,
Yes.
Carol Minden.
Yes. Next item on the agenda is JL 21-354, request by Stephen Halabau for a lot split and combination at the general location of 9340 South Elwood Avenue West. Marseille?
Thank you. This is lot split for 9340 South Elwood. And we talked to the applicant a couple of times before this application was made. And there is some clarification that I would like to make on this. So the summary of this lot split is basically making both lots equal in size. So they're going to take 20 feet and move it up, and so that they'll both be 220 feet. When you look at the planning data, it gives you the public comment. There have been none. This is a lot split. There is no public notice on these cases. It is not part of a special district. The zoning was previously done. The first lot, which I believe the northern lot, was rezoned in 1993. And I don't think we ever figured out exactly when the southern lot was rezoned, but it was probably close to that. So the general location is north of Main Street and west of Elwood. You have some other data in there. Staff believes that the lot split is in compliance with the city requirements. It says, as conditions from staff, provide additional street right-of-way, and platting is required per zoning. So I'd like to clarify for the record that once we started this process, I never brought that up to the applicant, and apologize for any frustration on their part. The lots were rezoned, and our zoning code requires in multiple places in section 260 under platting requirements, and section 16-3-2 subdivision plat required, and section 1510 policy on zoning map amendments. In at least 3 places, zoning changes require platting. In this case, this lot has been sitting there rezoned for about 30 years. And when Stephen came to me and asked if we could lot split this, I said, yeah, absolutely. It was zoned correct. We went through everything. It met all the requirements. It wasn't until I was writing the staff report that I was like, oh no, this is not, has not been platted. And then I was able to have Brandon to find the data, and sure enough, that was not only part of what the code says, but it was also a condition of approval of the zoning. So it's one of those cases where it sits there for 30 years and the platting is not triggered until it is currently being developed. With that being said, talk to the owner of the property through his engineer, and we agreed that we would move forward with the lot split because they are ready to actually start moving dirt, and then they will come back next month with a plat for you to, and I agreed with them that it would be fine to do a preliminary final at the same time. They have the option of doing one block with 2 lots, or they can plat each lot individually, and I'll leave that up to them. But you will see a plat on this next month. It will include that right of way and easements, and they'll go through the engineering process at that time. So I apologize to everyone. You do get to do a lot split, and then you also get to see it as a plat. So let's see. The preliminary and final plat will come before you next month, April 8th, and it will go to City Council on the 20th. Just wanted to get that out there so that you're not confused when you see the plat come back through that looks almost exactly like the lot split. So on page 18, it shows the general location. I did not use big bright arrows, but you can see that this is to the west of the golf course. And you can see down in figure 3, it's kind of an open area that has not been developed yet. On page 19 of your staff report, it shows the vacant lot there, and we have a Bing map. The final exhibit you'll see is on page 20. You see the north tract and the original lot line of the south tract, and then the existing shared line and the proposed shared line. So staff is in support of this lot split. We want to help them get moving forward on this project. It's an office building. Smithco will have an office there, and then I believe they're building a second building, which they will have as tenant space. Mr. Halabau, are you available on the line?
I am, yes, ma'am.
Okay, Mr. Halabau is the engineer of record. If you have any questions for him, he is available to answer those. Staff does not have any more comments, but does recommend approval at this time.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the commissioners? Does the applicant wish to address the commissioners?
I do not. We're in agreement with staff's recommendation.
Okay, thank you. If there are no questions or comments, do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve JL 21-754.
I'll second. David.
Craig Bowman,
Yes.
Leon Davis, I'm sorry, David Randolph,
Yes.
John Brown,
Yes.
Scott West,
Yes.
Jeffrey Byer,
Yes.
Carol Minden.
Yes. Third item on the agenda is JZ 21-668, request by Nicole Watts for a zone change from agricultural to commercial shopping. The location is 12023 South 27th Avenue West. Marseille?
Thank you, Chairman Minden. This is a rezoning application. So this is also a project that's been in the works for many, many months. Staff's met with the applicant on a couple of occasions way back in the early months of COVID. And I will say, upon beginning this conversation, I do believe we have someone in the audience who may or may not have questions at the end of this staff report, but they did show up to speak, to at least hear and possibly speak. So Nicole Watts is the applicant. Let me ask, Nicole, are you available online?
I'm here.
Thank you, Nicole. Nicole Watts is the engineer of record, and she is available once I complete my presentation. If you have any questions, she'll be happy to answer those as best she can. So this is another one of those quirky little things that's been zoning cases that's been sitting there for a very long time. There used to be an SUP. It was SUP 463, and it was part of JZ 421. So this was done a long time ago, and it was to build a mini storage. And our SUPs have a 2-year sunset clause. It's been many, many years. They did not ever start that project. Therefore, that SUP was voided. I did have it removed on February 2nd, 2021 from the NCOG zoning map, so it no longer shows up as an SUP for that area. With that being said, the applicant has met with us. They want to initially begin on a retail center, and then later on the property to the east, they want to do more of a destination event venue, and that would require a PUD at that time. So currently the property is zoned ag. They are requesting commercial shopping. The intended use in the long term is retail, and then ultimately, like I said, a little destination that might include food trucks and some other things. I will let Nicole elaborate if you have more questions on that. I do know they have intentions on the retail strip center immediately. So this property is unplatted. It will require platting. The request fits the current comprehensive plan and does not pose an adverse effect to the surrounding properties. The proposed plans will benefit Jenks and create an opportunity for additional tax dollars. If you look on page 24, it shows the property in question, and you can see that the one immediately to the east is already zoned commercial shopping. So at this time, they're asking to match that zoning. I did include from February, which was the last pre-development meeting we had with them, on page 25, I included the planning memo where I had kind of summarized our meeting and the steps that they would need to take to move forward. On page, that might be my last page. So they did submit a site plan internally, although it was not included in the documents. This is literally just a rezoning from ag to commercial shopping. Staff's only comment was that platting is required and recommends approval of JZ 21-688 per any comments, changing the zoning from ag to CS, commercial shopping.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from or comments from the commissioners?
Marseille, this is John again. A couple things. First of all, I'll just preface it by saying I'm in favor of this. I was looking through the UDO notes that have been distributed thus far and went back also to our code. I couldn't find any reference to food truck park. So I was wondering if that was going to be a permitted use under CS. And then the second question I had actually goes back to the planning notes that you provided to us. It looks like on page 26, it says the city council approved CS zoning district for the subject tract on June 5th, 2005. And I would think that if it appears based on these notes that zoning was approved separate from the SUP. And I'm wondering if our decision on this is moot, if we don't have to act on it.
I think what, I may have to ask Brandon to refresh my memory on this. I spent hours and hours researching this case because I could not find. So let me go. Ultimately, it was decided that well, shoot. Based on the zoning map that we found with the case, it was not rezoned, that it stayed ag, that they got the SUP, but not a rezoning. So my one notes may be mixed up. I apologize for that.
So then again, the second question would be food truck park. Is that a permitted use under CS?
Okay.
Under our new definitions.
I feel like I can see y'all really close, even though I don't think you can see me. I'm looking at my laptop, so I feel like I see y'all really well. This is something that we've had hours of conversation on, and that is food trucks, where they're permitted privately, publicly, in street right of way, in parks. I have made a recommendation to have some type of consideration, and you all will have the ability to make a recommendation or to, looks like Mr. Davis has joined us. You will have the ability to make a recommendation to council when the time comes. And I think that food trucks could be treated with the appropriate provisions as a dining establishment. So for instance, we have taken in Melody Lane, the PUD was approved to allow for food trucks. And so they have a permanent designated area within that PUD that would allow food trucks to be there. And so when they did their site plan, when they did their engineering, when they did their entire design, they set it up to have access for restrooms, for electric service and all of that, because they wanted a park style designation. And so we just put it within that PUD. And that is what they would have to do moving forward. And we actually called it 19.5, I think, which would allow, basically we called it food trucks. So if you look at one of the use units, I should have notes in front of me, but one of the use units allows for eating outside. So it's like a Sonic. And when you read the definition of a Sonic, it allows for eating food on premise, in your car or outside your car, but not necessarily within the establishment. And so I thought, well, that basically is the same thing as a food truck. You pull up and you either get out and sit at a picnic table or you sit. So what those long-term provisions are when these park designations would be allowed or not allowed is something that has not been determined, but I have recommended that we put it in the code to allow consideration of them. So you know how a lot of times with specific use permits, they're asking for a specific use, and then you all make recommendations and provisions for safety for the community and the surrounding environment, et cetera. So I think that we should have some very strategic requirements up front and not just, yeah, you can do it by right or whatever, but that will be part of the UDO conversation, Commissioner Brown. And I think it's not, we also have had lots of conversations. So if you're a residential subdivision and someone wants to have a food truck there for the evening, or you want to do a block party, that's different than if you have a food truck associated with an establishment in the downtown, that's also different. So it's not apples to apples, even though they are all serving food out of a truck. So you all have a lot of conversation to have.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure, since this was, under an SUP, I could see where that wouldn't be an issue, but since this was a JZ and was dealing with CS, I just didn't want the presumption that that was an approved use under CS.
It is not an approved use, and that's just a long-term goal of theirs, and you will definitely have the say, and they will have to do a PUD if they want to do something like that.
Okay.
You want to show it?
Any other questions or comments?
It's only for that.
I'll just briefly say, this seems like a no-brainer. I mean, just given the area that it's a commercial district, so, I'm in favor of it. As far as the food trucks, I'm glad that will be part of the UDO going forward, because this issue is coming up more and more, and, I think we just need some clear guidelines on expectations on that. So look forward to that later. I like food trucks, but not when the generator blares right next to your house, though.
Right.
Anyone else? Does the applicant wish to address the commission?
We're in agreement with staff recommendation. Just here if we have any questions.
Great, thank you. If there are no other questions or comments, do I hear a motion?
I don't think everything. I just needed to know what it was because we just built that house up there right by it. Like your sign is next to my house.
Okay.
We were just wondering what the plan was.
Okay. The audience is present, but they said they were just. It's okay. It's okay. They are present, but they did not have. I believe their questions were answered.
Okay.
Are you looking to entertain a motion now?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'll move to approve JZ 21-668. Per staff recommendation.
This is Jeff. I second.
Greg Bowman,
Yes.
David Randolph,
Yes.
John Brown,
Yes.
Scott West,
Yes.
Leon Davis,
Yes.
Clifford Bear,
Yes.
Carol Minden.
Yes. Fourth item on the agenda is JZ 21 PUD 61C.MI1, the request by Charles Spencer to approve a minor amendment to PUD 61C to reduce the build line. The general location is 13012 South 4th Place South. Marseille?
Thank you, Chairman Minden. This item is a minor amendment to PUD 61, and they are asking for a rear yard setback of 20 feet rather than 25. This is one of the cases that we talked about last month where a lot of times these would go to the Board of Adjustment because they're asking for a variance. In this case, I'm asking you all to provide recommendation for a minor amendment to the PUD. This is a little bit different also in that the house is not completed. So we're not looking at a structure that has already caused an encroachment. We're not looking at a physical encroachment. We're looking at the desire to create an encroachment. As you can see, I'll go through it in a minute. This is where I was talking about speaking with Tulsa land records today, and moving forward when we do these minor amendments to PUDs, we'll be sending a notarized letter along with the exhibits and the legal description, and that will be filed of record for that parcel. So that way in the future, if anybody does any record search, if you're a title company or a land surveyor, engineer, you'll be able to find these minor amendments in those documents. So with that being said, there were no public comments. There's no one present to speak on it. There's no change of use. It is a single family subdivision and will remain so. The zoning is RS2 Uh-oh. It's not PUD. 26. The comprehensive plan is medium intensity, single family. And again, that does not change. The general location is north of 131st and east of Elm. It's part of Yorktown, blocks 39 through 44. If you look on page 29, you'll see that this lot backs up to a designated drainage area. And it also shows up as a green space on the comprehensive plan. If you look on page 30, it talks about PUD amendments and the considerations. So if you look under staff evaluation and recommendation, it's currently a 25-foot rear build line encroachment relief request. And it says approving this request would allow the current and future property owners, which have been identified by parcel and lot and block, relief from the 25-foot setback by changing it to a 25-foot rear build line setback. The lot is part of a small cul-de-sac, and you can see I've put a big white arrow pointing to the area. The encroachment requires a 5-foot reduction. There are no other lots impacted by this decision. Staff recommends approval of the requested build line reduction. If you look on page 31, you can see the lot where they've started moving dirt there and the big detention pond in the back. And then you can see that it drains out to the street. You can see that drainage outlet where the water goes probably into it. On page 32, you have the Spencer family residence, and they drew it with the 20-foot setback. And so that little jut out on the right side of the page is what would be encroaching. And if their covered patio touches the ground there, the covered patio and that little room to the back is what's encroaching. If you look on page 33, they did a larger lot exhibit, and they drew it at the 20 feet. So it would be 5 feet different from what was required versus what it is. So what they have presented is what they're asking for.
Got it.
Staff does not have any other comments at this time.
Okay.
So this is one of those areas where, again, we've got the exception because of the cul-de-sac, except in this time they're looking at having it on the back versus on the front, which is typically what we've had. This might be a place where, again, as we work on new language, addressing this specific issue with cul-de-sacs and setbacks.
There is some new language on that, and I'm waiting for the illustrations to make sure that I think that they're adequate. We've already revised them a little bit, and you'll definitely have your opportunity to further look at that and revise it. I will say, this is talking about, so it is on point for the agenda item. In Yorktown, it's been brought to my attention in the last couple of weeks that there are multiple homes that have been built that actually violate that rear yard setback. And I've asked the one home builder that contacted me if they would consider looking at all the projects they know they've done and all the projects that they know may have violated it. And I may bring all of those back to you at one time to do a minor amendment on all of them instead of doing them one by one. And what I really try to avoid is someone trying to sell their home or buy a home and it's held up and the title company won't clear it, or the lending agency won't loan them the money because there's an encroachment. So we may see several of these in Yorktown in the very near future.
Okay, anyone else?
Have you received any comments from the HOA or anyone?
No. No comments.
Okay, just a few quick thoughts. I mean, I don't have an issue with this. I just don't want to make our standard saying, well, build over it and then come back and ask forgiveness. But, this is a minor thing. They're really squeezed in between that front setback and the back.
Right.
It's an awkwardly shaped lot. There's no neighbors right behind them or anything. So I don't see a problem with doing this, but I just want to make clear, I'm not just going to approve every single one that comes in front of us either. I mean, it sounds like there's others in Yorktown where it makes sense too, but I just don't want to signal to developers that we'll just waive any violations that you might have done.
Yes, I agree.
Anyone else? Do I hear a motion to approve this item?
Okay, I talked the most. I guess I'll make a motion. Okay. I'll move to approve JZ 21 PUD 61C minor amendment number 1.
This Leon, I'll second it.
Craig Bowman,
Yes.
Steve Randolph,
Yes.
John Brown,
Yes.
Scott West,
Yes.
Leon Davis,
Yes.
Clifford Dyer,
Yes.
Carol Menden.
Yes. Item number 5 is JZ 21 PUD-125, a request by Greg Helms for approval of a new planned unit development with an underlying zoning of office light and changing the comprehensive plan to local commercial. General location is 556 West K Place. Marseille?
Thank you, Chairman Minden. Is Mr. Greg Helms available online for questions following my staff report?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Is Mr. Josh McFarland online for the next item? Carrie, could I get you to send a link to Mr. McFarland? I'll have, yeah.
I got you, Carrie.
Okay, sorry about that. All right, this is a planned unit development for a rezoning and a comprehensive plan amendment, and they're putting a PUD with it. So I just want to remind you all, when you're doing a comprehensive plan amendment, the plan amendment has to be approved before we can approve the PUD or the rezoning. So I'm going to do the entire report, assuming that you want to hear the whole thing and that it's not just a hard no, and we'll go from there. But I just want you to keep that in mind, that when there's a plan amendment involved, that you cannot take action on the PUD and rezoning if you're not in agreement with the comp plan amendment. So this project represents a second office for the Kearns family business. The PUD will allow for a private screened washed gravel lot at the south end of the property, and that's for their own commercial vehicles, no outdoor storage of materials. The comprehensive plan, Horizon Jenks, anticipated high density residential and will require an amendment. And so that is what they're asking for. They're asking for a comprehensive plan amendment to change the comprehensive plan from potential apartments or duplexes or something like that to local commercial. If you are familiar, if you're going down K Street, the Kearns have the hard corner and they have an office on that hard corner already. And so this property is separated by the railroad tracks, but they would own the hard corner and the property adjacent, but having the railroad tracks between them. So I'll point that out to you as we move forward. So the use would be a change from single family subdivision to office. The zoning they're requesting is PUD 125 and office light. The comprehensive plan is currently medium intensity single family, and the comprehensive plan request is local commercial. The general location is south of K Place and east of the railroad tracks. Currently it is unplatted, and then you have some parcel information. On page 35 is a zoning map and shows the parcel in question, and I would point out to you that hard corner that you see on the zoning map that is zone CS is also their property. If you go down, you can see that on the Horizon Jenks map, their current property is actually light industrial on the comprehensive plan, but I like the local commercial zoning better rather than giving it the option for industrial. And they're not doing anything industrial anyway. Office was what they wanted. On page 36, talks about number 1, this project provides a new structure and additional parking for commercial vehicles as related to the Kearns construction business needs. Staff is in agreement with the office use in lieu of high density single family as projected. Sorry about that. Had to make a little note. It is high density, not medium density. Number one, approving this request would allow the current property as identified by parcel to be redeveloped for an office use. Approving this request would approve a change in the comprehensive plan from high intensity family to local commercial. And in this case, that would be a much less intense use, because having high intensity single family, you're going to have a lot more traffic, a lot more cars, and you would have less in this case. And certainly different cars, of course, also. What you need to consider, is the PUD consistent with the comprehensive plan? And I wrote in parentheses, it is consistent with overall development, but requires an amendment because it is not consistent with the actual designation. Does the PUD harmonize with the existing and expected development of surrounded areas? I would answer yes, personally, because they already have an office on the other side. We have some industrial uses. And there is a neighborhood. Number three, is the PUD a unified treatment of the development possibilities of the site? I do believe that it is, that the design provides privacy for the neighbors and secure premises for the company. And number four, whether the PUD is consistent with the stated purposes. And I said yes. And number four, plating is required. Staff recommends approval of the requested comprehensive plan amendment and the requested zone change and PUD JZ 21, PUD 125. On page 38, you see the zoning map that was sent out. And then on page 39, you can begin to see the PUD that was prepared by Mr. Helms. On page 40, they have the development concept. This is a one-story multi-tenant office building facing West K Place. And they're asking for a screened gravel parking area for equipment storage. There will be no outdoor material storage on the south end of the property. The existing workshop building and nearby large tree are anticipated to remain. So I like that they have identified a large tree and they intend to keep it. So if you go down to the development standards, oops. Zoning is OL, proposed uses, use unit 11 and 15. They are asking I didn't do my normal chart. I was telling Brandon earlier, I don't know why, but when it comes to the development standards, they're asking to reduce the setback from 50 feet to 20 to match adjacent property rear setbacks. And setback from a non-arterial street will be 30 feet. They are screening they provided a lot of screening. So there's an 8-foot privacy fence along the east side of the property and 8 feet privacy fence along with evergreen screening on the south end of that east side. And I'll point that out to you when we look at the maps or the drawings. Let's see. Their parking, they met the requirements for that. The property is unplatted and will need to be platted. If you look on page 42, and if you're looking at K Place, all the way on the right, adjacent to those homes there, they'll have an 8-foot screening fence adjacent to the residential properties. And then there's a green line, and from that green line south, they'll do additional tree plantings as well. And then you see that again on the site plan, which is on page 43. You'll see the 3,200 square foot office building with the 8 parking spaces. You see a rolling gate that if you choose, the washed gravel is not allowed by code, and you do have to give special permission for that. There's a rolling gate that separates the front building office area and the actual parking and equipment storage. And they are keeping the existing workshop building at this time. So you can see the additional tree planting they have along the south and the east side once you get past that first 117 feet plus or minus. We have a really nice illustration on page 44 of the office building, 3,200 square foot existing building, and then the gravel parking and equipment. And then on page 45 of your staff report, shows the street view, and this is a concept. It might change a little bit. Mr. Helms can say how tied in they are to that. Page 46, more concepts, as well as 47. And then you have the last view on page 48, a street view looking southwest. So for consideration, the first thing that Planning Commission would need to consider is whether or not you're okay with this concept and you're willing to amend the comprehensive plan and change it from high intensity single family to local commercial. If you are willing, then I do recommend approval of the comprehensive plan amendment as well as the rezoning and the PUD.
So Marseille, is that will that be 3 separate motions that are made?
It can be 2. The rezoning and the PUD will be one ordinance, so it can be one motion.
Okay, discussion, any questions and comments?
Marseille, this is John. I'm going to jump in again. Apologize, guys. First of all, let me just give kudos to Greg for the layout on this. It's really nice. It'll be an improvement, and the Kerns have done a great job on their first site and the way they've maintained. I will say this: Halsell and Levine, when we set the high density out for that particular area, that tract of land would not be appropriate on the comp plan. The size and shape of the plat is nobody's going to go in and put any residential housing in there. It's right next to the railroad tracks. So I can't see anybody developing it for anything else other than what Kearns has proposed. So I am in favor of the change to the comp plan on that. I do have some questions about the PUD and some of the exceptions. Should I go ahead and address those now, Marseille?
Yeah, go ahead and ask them, and then we'll turn it over to Mr. Helms, and he can respond.
Okay, so on the PUD, a couple concerns. You already mentioned one, which was the gravel. Even though they're talking about washed gravel, to my knowledge, I don't recall, since I've been on the commission, approving any developments where we've approved gravel versus hard surface. And yes, under section 1130, chapter 11, it is calling for hard surfaces, dust-free, all weather. There's a little bit of ambiguity in the current code in that it talks about or the functional equivalent, and I don't have any idea what a functional equivalent is to asphalt and concrete. So I've got concerns about that. The other thing is with the gravel, that even if they go with dust-free gravel, over time, gravel wears down, and you do have the townhomes that are just on the other side of the fence. So I think it's going to add to the noise and the dust. So I've got some challenges with that. The other thing is you mentioned the setback. I thought we were on non-arterial. I thought that was 25 feet versus 30. And the way this plat is laid out, the concerns about the setback on the south side of the property, I'd actually be more concerned about cutting back on the setback on the north side, which is along K Place, versus on the south side. And the only reason I could see where they would want to shift that is so that they could leave the existing building that was an unattached shed. Looks like they may have upgraded it a little bit, because if they don't move the building back to conform to the setback on K Place, there may not be enough parking on the south side of the proposed building to leave that shed in there. But I'd be hesitant to waiving that setback. I'd rather see the setback cut down on the south side of the property. So I've got some challenges with that.
Okay, those are noted, and I'll let Greg respond, but we'll wait and see if you have any others. Since we're online, it's a little bit harder to take comments and answer them.
Anyone else?
Hey, John, this is Scott. I don't know if it alleviates any of your concerns, but on page 42 of our packet, the existing building that they currently have also has the gravel parking. You can see it there on the left-hand side of that picture. And I remember approving that with questions, but I don't think it's been any kind of issue at all to this point.
Yeah, in that particular case, that area is light industrial. And I think the thing I have concerns about is that corner, the property to the north, which is, I think, may also be zoned light industrial. It's gravel and it's not maintained. We've got a flooding issue there anytime we've got rain, and I don't know, just I don't think I was involved when that first plat was originally approved.
I think the
Clearly, it's less expensive, so I can see why they would want to do that as well.
Mhm. Anyone else with comments?
I'd just like to say one thing on the gravel. If there's an issue with light flooding in that area, the gravel will allow for better absorption of the water. So I've seen similar developments have that for that specific purpose.
Yeah, it will perk better. In this particular case, though, it's on the east side of the railroad track, and I've not seen any flooding issues there. It's to the west side of the railroad track on the north side of K where it floods.
Okay.
There's actually, I think there's a water retention pond south of that site as well, if I'm not mistaken.
looks like it. So I think, let me go back. Currently, the questions are Mr. Brown, Commissioner Brown has raised the question of whether or not gravel should be allowed and the impact that might have on the adjacent townhomes to the east. And then the other question is the setback, and I think it might actually, it's probably supposed to be front setback, but I'll let Mr. Helms address that. Was there a third item?
No, that's it. And
Okay.
and again, the concern is doing gravel for light office.
Okay. And then Commissioner Davis made the point that sometimes the gravel serves more as an impervious and actually is more beneficial to the overall site development than a hard surface.
Sorry.
Marseille,
Help speak.
if Greg's not going to speak right away, I have a quick question. This is Jeff Byer. On page 43, it makes a note, extend sidewalk across railway right-of-way. Is that included in the project? It's not reflected on all the documents.
So I'll speak whenever you're ready. I didn't know if it was my turn yet or not. This is Greg.
We'll add that question. Go ahead, Greg.
So on, I guess question one regarding the gravel, just like in the PUD that was approved for their existing lot, the thought is this is an equipment parking area. So the items that we've parked there, trailers, those kind of things, it's not a day-to-day parking lot for employees, just more construction equipment parking. And Mr. Kearns, I believe, is on the phone, so he could address that better if you have some more questions. So number two was the setback, and actually, what we said was we were trying to match the rear setback of the adjacent properties. So it's not discussing our rear setback. We're wanting to push the building closer to K to align with the back of the existing houses to the east, if that makes sense. Since we're putting the parking in the back, we were just going to push the building to the north to line up with the back of the houses that are adjacent to the east side of the property.
Yeah, I understood that right, Greg. Again, my concern is the setback from K Place on the north side. I'd be more concerned that we match the setback off of K Place versus off of the back side of the building. And the residential housing that is to the east of that, would that not be matching the appropriate setback then at 25 or 30 feet?
I guess whatever that distance is, the goal was just to align with the back, not go any farther north than the back of the existing houses to the east, but be allowed to build to whatever line aligns with their rear building setback, if that makes sense. Just so we have the same street, basically the same streetscape from K Place to the building as from K Place to the back of the existing residences.
So then clarification, on the north side of the building that would face K, is the north side of the proposed building then going to align with the north side of the residential townhomes to the east or to the south? So it would align with those townhomes?
Yes.
On the front, the north side of the townhomes or the south side?
So the north side of our building would align with the north side of the townhomes.
So the townhomes are actually closer than they should have been approved originally.
That I don't know.
Okay.
But our goal is just for our setback to match whatever their rear setback is. Whatever their platted setback is what we would match.
Commissioner Brown, I think that they may have been, the setback may have been accurate at the original time the residences were done, but remember that K was expanded and widened through there, which may have actually encroached on them a little bit.
That's a good point because of the sidewalk.
Mhm.
That's a very good point. Thank you for that, Scott.
Point of order, I'm looking at the GIS map, and it looks like from that additional right-of-way, it's about 19 to 20 feet to the front face of those townhomes.
Greg, I'll ask my question again. It may have got lost in the shuffle. Do the plans include extending the sidewalk up to and across the railway crossing and connecting to the existing sidewalk?
Yes. And so in discussions with city staff, I think in part of our application it says, a joint effort with the city. Basically, we would need the city's help dealing with the railroad company, but we would put in the sidewalk. So we'd have a continuous sidewalk from Elm across Kern's current property, across the railroad, across this new property, tying in to the existing sidewalk there on the east side of the property, or about 2/3 of the way across the property.
Thank you.
So then last question, Greg, the gravel is just proposed then for the south side of the property versus the north side and the staff parking area?
Yes, so the gravel would only be behind the 8-foot privacy fence that separates the proposed office building from the equipment storage area.
Okay.
And I've got some, the dimensions that show where that privacy fence is with the rolling gate. I mean, certainly that fence is going to be, its exact location is going to be determined by what's best for that tree, whether it's on the north side of the tree or the south side of the tree.
Okay. That makes sense.
Thank you.
Anything else for Mr. Helms? Mr. Helms, anything else for the commissioners that you'd like to add?
I would just add, diagonally to the northeast from this property isn't an existing multi-tenant office complex already. So we're not extending, office use or commercial any farther east on K Place than is already there. And then there's the CrossFit gym that's existing that, is about 1,000 feet farther east. So again, we're not bringing anything into the residential area that isn't already there.
Okay, thank you. Okay, commissioners, at this point, we are up to a discussion or a motion to make one motion or two motions for the comprehensive plan amendment and then the rezoning and the PUD.
I'll go ahead and, since I asked all the questions, I'm going to make a motion to amend the comp plan. I guess, do we reference this to the JZ and the PUD that's going to change this from high intensity single family to light office?
This is Scott. I'll second.
Greg Bowman,
Yes.
David Randolph,
Yes.
John Brown,
Yes.
Scott West,
Yes.
Leon Davis,
Yes.
Jeffrey Byer,
Yes.
Harold Minden.
Yes. Okay, that item passes. Next. You want to continue, John?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make the second motion that we then approve JZ 21 PUD 125 with the provisions to allow a revision to the setback requirements to 20 feet and the use of dust-free gravel as proposed.
I'll second.
Greg Bowman,
Yes.
David Randolph,
Yes.
John Brown,
Yes.
Scott West,
Yes.
Leon Davis,
Yes.
Jeffrey Byer,
Yes.
Harold Minden.
Yes. Okay, next item on the agenda is JZ 21 PUD 126, requested by Joe Kelly for approval of a plan unit development 126 with an underlying zoning of commercial general. The general location is 802 West Main Street. Marseille?
Thank you, Chairman Minden. This project is an extension of Melody Lane, which has recently been approved off of Main Street. And there are a couple of items that are part of this request. Number one is a request of rezoning from IL to CG. They would like to do a PUD overlay. It's the only way they could get to where they want to go. It's a replat of Melody Lane Court and the vacation of a utility easement. So on this one, there are multiple items as well. I'll do one staff report, and then if you have questions on the different parts, please feel free to ask. And I think, Mr. McFarland, it looks like you are present now.
I am, thank you.
Okay, great. So this is located west of Elm and south of Main Street. This is phase 2 of that economic redevelopment project. The applicant already took an existing strip mall that had some sports activity things, and then they added an event venue space at the south end, and then they also have had a brewery that is should be almost open if it's not already. So the zoning On page 49, again, this is a rezoning of the entire property to commercial general, and this is per staff recommendation and requirement. I like the underlying zoning to match as close as possible to the uses that will be allowed and to the project. The PUD 126 is an overlay zoning identifying the uses that would be allowed, some parking standards and some signage standards. This is a replat requirement of Melody Lane Court because they're going to be changing the lot lines instead of just doing a lot split, or instead of lot splitting within the existing plat, we're asked them to replat. And there's a utility easement that runs across the property line that's the technical advisory committee has already been identified. We've had some comments on it, and it will move forward to vacation at district court. At this time, I have not received any comments. Let me confirm. Brandon, have you received any comments? We have not received any comments except from my planning commission. And you all have reached out and asked a couple of questions. The uses that they're asking for are athletic uses and commercial office and retail spaces. And those athletic uses are outdoor fields. They have been for many years and will continue to be used as practice fields. And they will also be used in the future as competitive fields. The zoning is CG and IL, and we're asking for commercial general with a PUD overlay. The comprehensive plan is local commercial, and the general location again is south of Main and west of Elm. So the current plat is Melody Lane Center, plat number 3303. We have the parcel identification information down here. This was formerly, I think everybody calls it the Sharp property. And Mr. Sharp had a gas station there and I believe an office. I did have a question and I have submitted documents to you all. I will include them in the council information. There is a letter in the title information from the Oklahoma Corporation Commission that was written June 5th, 2006, stating that permanent closure of 1 3,000 gallon, 1 12,000 gallon, and 2 8,000 gallon, and 5 20,000 gallon underground storage tanks. After review of the data submitted, the Oklahoma Corporation Commission believes the levels of chemicals of concerns in the soil and groundwater at this site pose no harm to human health, safety, or the environment. So they have been cleared for development as of 2006. On the preliminary plat, it was given to TAC, the Technical Advisory Committee, on February 11th, 2021. Mr. Riley with PSO stated that they had old equipment in the easement, but they will take care of that, remove the equipment, and treat it like a new commercial development. Mr. Cloyd sent out notes stating that he would prefer they either keep the 30-foot access as it is and eliminate the 60-foot point to the east, or vice versa. If they eliminated the western access and keep the eastern one, it should be reduced to 30 feet. At this time, I did submit all of these comments several weeks ago. The engineer of record has been outstanding to work with. He got right back with me, made all the changes that we asked at that time. As far as the easement closure and vacation, they are to provide the easement closure legal description. So we've already sent it to the Technical Advisory Committee and we showed it on the existing plat, but I'm still waiting for that actual legal description. So I'll bring that to their attention. When you look at page 52, it shows the designated area. I've got a yellow arrow pointing to the IL, so that's the area that will be rezoned, and that's where the practice fields have been and will continue to be. There's also in that far southeast corner a cell tower, and that cell tower will be, the cell tower site is part of the overall project sale. So the financial transaction, the land transaction includes the cell tower site, and the lease stays with the previous owner. And they do expect that the lease will not be renewed. The comp plan shows this as local commercial. You can see that at the bottom of page 52. And then there's a street map. You can see the old gas station there that was part of the Sharp property. Again, when you're considering a PUD, it says the intent of the planned unit development district is to permit flexibility that will encourage a more creative approach to the development of land and will result in a more efficient use of open space while maintaining density and area coverage permitted in the general zoning districts. And then it goes on to say other things. So in my evaluation, the applicant has 3 requests. The first one is a rezoning and PUD 126. Approving this request would allow the current and future property owners to operate a commercial outdoor sports facility and commercial retail office space. The rezoning was required by staff to remove any potential industrial uses and bring the underlying zoning closer to the requested uses. The PUD allows for shared parking with the adjacent Melody Lane in perpetuity. So there was already a shared parking agreement, and I'll let Josh tell you the boundaries of that. I probably would like to get that on a map. Let me make a note here. But essentially, there was already a shared parking agreement, and this would be lumped in with that shared parking agreement. The PUD allows for a shared off-site monument sign, and that is literally at the shared entrance between Melody Court and Melody Lane. This PUD designates a monument sign at that site. The PUD allows uses, or the allowed uses were created to custom fit the site goals. And use unit 19.5 was created and used in PUD 121, which was Melody Lane. So we'll go over that when we look at the PUD. Staff has presented preliminary comments for review and correction. The applicant has met and revised all the comments. If there are any comments tonight, they are, as part of the recommendations, they are to consider those and meet those. Preliminary plat. Approving this request will allow the applicant to prepare the final plat for review, submittal, and recordation, and the easement vacation. Approving this request to close the easement will allow the applicant to vacate the abandoned easement in district court. So there are 3 approvals: PUD 126 and rezoning from IL to CG, approval of the preliminary plat, and approve the easement closure. And just a reminder, Planning Commission makes recommendations to City Council, and City Council does not have the authority to vacate an easement. They can only close an easement, and this one, that would be the case here. So on page 57 is the first page of the actual planned unit development 126. On page 58, it talks about the general purposes. I'd like to skip down to number 3 where it says principal uses permitted. And it says same principal uses allowed in CG, see table 1 for details. So on page 59, it shows the actual, anything that was allowed by right in CG is listed over here. And then there are some things that have asterisks. So use unit 19.5, commercial amusement establishments not requiring a large site near a commercial trade area, includes outdoor recreation and open air activities. So currently in the code, use unit 19 says billiards, pool halls, things associated with a hotel, such as dance bars and stuff like that. So it doesn't really fit what they're asking for. It doesn't fit in 19, and what they're asking for doesn't fit in 20, because 20 is more like a rodeo grounds or a rodeo arena, like really large sites. So when we did PUD for Melody Lane, we created 19.5. So PUDs are special zoning, so we made it very, very special. So PUD 19 or use unit 19.5 is commercial amusement establishment not requiring a large site near a commercial trade area, includes outdoor recreation and open air activities. So we use the same language from the previous PUD. The other one that we changed a little bit was PUD use unit 20, which says commercial recreation intensive, and we limited it to outdoor recreation, which consists of sports practice and sporting activity, including league play and tournaments. So it does allow for use unit 20, but with the caveat that it's for athletic events. They can't put a rodeo grounds there or any of those other uses allowed in use unit 20. So parking and access, it says 58 spaces provided. Blanket access easement shall be created. If you look on page 59, it shows the different use units, and we just talked about use unit. I'd like to talk about use unit 12, and this is where that has the 2 asterisks. So it says to include drive-through window. They have that option if they want to do a coffee shop with a drive-through. If you look at 19, it has 3 asterisks, commercial recreation as defined in PUD 19.5, commercial amusement establishment, and use unit 20 only to include outdoor recreation facilities as defined in the PUD. On page 60, you have the general look and area. Then you have screening, same as CG, signage, building mounted signage to conform to the requirements of CG, and freestanding signage may be located on adjacent property currently named Melody Lane and shall be submitted to city staff for approval separately from the PUD. Parking as approved. And if you look on page 61, they do the parking data, and that's where you see the overall site plan. This PUD will not go back through the ARC review. The site plan will be submitted for city staff review to illustrate compliance with all the PUD requirements, and landscaping will be reviewed and approved by city staff. And they've been given the landscaping requirements that are really just part of a landscaping guide at this time. So again, if you look on the next page, page 61, you see the site plan. You have 2 buildings, a total of 12,840 square feet in an L shape with parking in the front. And then you have the practice fields, etc., in the back on the south side of that. According to this, it says there are 18 spaces for the 3,600 square foot office parking. There are 30 spaces provided for the 5,000 square feet of retail. It's very tiny. You have to zoom in to read this. If you look on page, let's see, 62, there's a color site plan that shows some of the landscaping for Melody Lane, but then also shows Melody Court. So this is the entire site plan, what was approved for Melody Lane, and now what they're asking for with Melody Court. If you have any questions on this or are not sure where the line is, let me know. But basically, if you're looking at it, the white building on the left side of the page is the existing Melody Lane project. So the left side is the Melody Court. I believe there are 2 more pages in your packet. Did everybody get the next 2 pages that showed the plat?
Yes.
Okay. I either lost my pages or didn't get them. I panicked at about 15 till 6 thinking that y'all didn't get your pages. Okay. Great. So the next pages show the preliminary plat, and of course the deed of dedication will match whatever the approved PUD says. And then the last page, let me see if I can find it, of this is the easement, I believe. I think that is all I have to say about it. Mr. McFarland is available if you have any additional questions. And I can't think of anything else.
Okay. A lot of information. Thank you. Okay, questions?
We're not going to talk to Josh as long as he's got that A's hat on.
Let me see. I might have another hat around here somewhere. I just
Marseille has
got
the
Little League Baseball, so I'm sorry.
Marseille has the property transaction closed. Do you know?
Yes.
And they have closed on the property.
Okay. And then from the, I think it was from the Corporation Commission 2007, did you say those tanks had been sealed? Is that the
What it
language?
says is the tanks were permanently removed and that the ground.
They were removed. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. That the ground poses no harm to health, human health, safety, or the environment.
Right. Great.
Yeah.
Another question about the cell tower. I think in here somewhere I read that it's going to eventually go away, most likely. assuming that's when the lease potentially is not renewed. I'm assuming that if the lease is not removed, that the cell tower will actually be dismantled and taken away.
Yeah, our hope is that they realize that their lease ran out. There's an auto renew period that they've been continually paying for it. My understanding with Mr. Sharp, and that was a deal that he said as soon as they realize it, he thinks that they'll be coming out to take it down. But I think it expired like 3 months ago, and they've been continually sending in there. And I don't want to speak for Mr. Sharp because he does retain that lease as a part of the contract. But I was asking him if he could help me make it go away, but he said until they notice, it probably will stay there. But eventually, I did get a copy of that lease and reviewed it. They do have the full responsibility of taking it down once the lease is not renewed, and got to take it down all the way down to the I think it's like 12 or 14 inches below surface or something.
Right. Okay, good. Also, it looks like on your site plan, what I'm looking at, you're going to have a different orientation of fields out there. So you're going to have different lighting, new lighting. The existing fixtures will not be used.
Yes, we would like to put LED lights. Those lights that are out there right now cost a fortune to run.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And so the Sports Armory is going to maintain and manage that, and we would like to have a access where they can go through the Sports Armory, check in, and then go to the fields. And they were measuring it today, trying to figure out how they can accommodate their sports uses. There's a lot of sports uses that'll be utilizing it for like women's lacrosse, t-ball, soccer, flag football potentially. A couple of people reached out. They're trying to configure it to where one big turf field with a lot of lines on it so they can use it for multi-purpose.
Right.
And so that will affect the lighting for sure. So we might have to move the lights a little bit to get better positioning and more coverage.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure that the existing ones really go away, because in the PUD it says that the lighting will be limited to shielded fixtures directing light downwards and away from residential structures, and the current ones are not. They just blare out everywhere. And then it kind of in relation to that, what is the distance from the residential property to the south to the proposed athletic field?
Good question. It's quite a ways because the backyard is over there, and when I measured it from the backyard, from the stage, because I was trying to figure out how far away it was a pretty good distance. Probably 600 feet away from the backyard. So it's got to be more than that from the where that would be, especially with the tower there. So I'm not really clear, or I don't want to give an exact number because I don't have that, but it was a long ways.
I can provide a little bit of information. If you go from the north side of the tower site, so that little square where the tower sits on that southeast corner, and you go to the closest point of the apartments, is 231 feet.
Thank you, Marseille.
As a bird flies.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments?
So Marseille, you have checked the plat on Melody Lane to make sure that the language is in there on the shared signage and the covenant for egress, ingress, and parking?
I will make sure that it is in there. I want it to be, they already have an agreement, so I think that it should just match whatever the agreement says now. And I have not, Josh has given me, I think he gave me the copy of the agreement. I'll make a
Yes.
note, Commissioner Brown, I'll make a note to make sure that that is included in the deed of dedication.
And this new plat layout then is also taking into consideration the recommendations by Mr. Cloyd.
Yes, they've already fixed that.
Was that regarding the parking lot?
In the deed of dedication, no. But they did the access, they already corrected and did what?
Mr. Cloyd?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
I just found it. Anyone else?
Yeah, that was one question. I just want to make sure I'm following right. Like in the northwest, there's an entrance, and I saw Mr. Cloyd's comment there. I didn't totally follow what he was saying. Marseille, you can probably point it out to me.
Let me find the plat real quick. The originally there were two. There was an access really close to the property immediately, I'll say to the left or to the west.
Okay.
Of this, and we talked about it in one of our development meetings, and I think Mr. McFarland wanted to use that for delivery purposes, etc. But staff felt like it was too close to the other drive aisle immediately to the west, and he said, if you keep that, then you have to change the size. So basically, they closed it, moved it down.
Okay.
So the original plat had a platted access right at that hard corner of the lot, and they've moved that now.
Okay. Thanks.
Marseille, there's one. I was driving the location here the last couple of days, and I hate to even ask this. I'm kicking myself that I'm even going to ask it, but has traffic been consulted on this? Is that a double yellow that we've got going down Main, where that's at? And the concern being, we did not, when we widened Main, we did not allow for a left turn lane.
I do not know well, I do know that public safety has been contacted and that we've heard comments from the fire chief. He's been very instrumental in this process. We try to get him looped in immediately. I cannot say if the police department has responded, but I have not received any comments from them. So your question is that a double yellow line?
Yeah, like I said, we didn't allow for a left turn lane going into Melody Lane or Melody Court. So it's going to potentially obstruct traffic going west, turning into the build out. Just a concern traffic wise.
Yeah, I will check that and talk to the police.
I took a look on Google Earth Street View. It is a double yellow lane.
Okay.
So, unless anyone has anything else on that, I had a question about just the closure of the utility easement. I mean, really, I obviously I don't have a problem with that, but can we require judicial foreclosure just so that's permanently closed? I don't want that there and then some utility company trying to reopen it and, forcing removal of a building or anything like that. I didn't know as a planning commission if we can make that a condition or not. I recall we did that, west of Highway 75 last year sometime just to kind of clean up the record.
We can. I remember that being a really big deal to Mr. Bell, but I don't remember why. It's generally assumed it's going to be replatted anyway, and it will now that easement will not be a part of the plat, so it will go away automatically with the new plat.
Okay. Well, never mind then. Okay. I did have a question, just kind of, on parking. If the fields look like a neat use, and I'm not opposed to that at all. Oops, sorry, my lights just went off. But, I just wondered if anyone's done the math, and you probably have on, let's say it's full and there's 6 teams playing, and there's other businesses open that time of day. Just have we looked at that? Is there enough parking? Because Titan Sports seems to do the parking just great, but like Metro Tulsa, I don't want a repeat of that where it's sort of a parking nightmare for soccer or things like that.
We've had an in-depth conversation on multiple occasions with Mr. McFarland and his team, and that was my biggest concern, is whether or not I can get there safely with my family, get them parked, get them to the fields, etc. This has a little bit, at this time, with the development as planned, it I think can work very well. And they have provided enough spaces for the retail establishment. It would just be anytime that there was a tournament use that there could be a conflict. One of the tenants, and Mr. McFarland can elaborate on this, one of the tenants is an office tenant, so they wouldn't be there during the weekend hours. Josh, would you like to expound on your parking?
Yeah, we've had several discussions about it, and it's definitely something that we don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot on either, because it's something that'll make people mad and they won't want to eat at our restaurants and frequent our center. So we've had a lot of consideration on that, and like Ms. Marseille has said, we have like Barracuda staffing, the parking requirements for the square footage that they have, they're not going to get even close to. A lot of the timing for the center and the places that are operating don't overlap. It's really going to be a rarity that it is busy, and at the same time, I should say, I hope it's busy all the time, but it'll be a rarity that they're all working at the same time. And another advantage is that Melody Court, which is the one we're kind of talking about now, is 100% owner. The tenants they own the center. That is the owner group, is the tenants. So we're not going to make our tenants mad. They're definitely going to communicate with each other because they own the building with me. Melody Lane shares one of those tenants. The biggest tenant there is the Sports Armory, and that's Sean Williams and Jeff Pace. And those guys are business partners with me on Melody Court and the sports field back in the back. And so they're going to be managing that. And with all of that synergistic value of those owners being also the tenants, they're not going to do something that puts them in a bad predicament with parking as well. I'm guessing there probably is some concern about hosting a concert at Melody Lane, and also hosting a soccer, little kid soccer tournament at the field at the same time. And there's a big cluster with parking, and all I can tell you is that we wouldn't do that. For one, we advertise our concerts per our PUD. They have to be advertised in advance. We wouldn't overbook that center because it wouldn't be an advantage to our owner group or the tenants or the community.
It helps that you have control over it. So if it becomes a problem, you can, not schedule things at the same time or something. So,
totally.
Okay, that's helpful. I just had one last kind of question. This is kind of just logistical. I didn't know if you were planning to have restrooms by the soccer fields or not. I just didn't want them trekking into Barracuda staffing a bunch of kids. Just kind of what your plan was for how to do that.
So I know this is a little bit odd to say. They're all going to check in. Everybody that goes to that field, unless it's some kind of a Saturday, Sunday event, we're going to have them all check in through.
He's breaking up. I can't hear him.
Can you hear me now?
Now I can.
Now I can. Can you start over? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So the Sports Armory is where they're going to check in to go to the field, and the restrooms in there hardly get used. One or two toilets at one time at the most. But in saying that, there's plenty of restrooms in there for men and women, and they can always go to the Sports Armory. But if you remember, we're also, we're willing to allow them to use the backyard restrooms that we're currently building right now as well. I don't know if they have plans to build restrooms out there. I need to talk to Sean and Coach Pace and find out, if it gets to be a problem, they'll definitely need to. I suspect that if they have a tournament on a Saturday or Sunday and they've got 5-on-5 8-year-old soccer going on or something like that, that they'll most likely bring in some porta-johns in those tournament times.
Okay, well that's helpful to know, and I figured you were coordinating with the Sports Armory too, so that I think that's a workable option. So, okay, that's all I had.
Maybe there's some way to modify the Melody Lane facility on the Sports Armory to make another entrance off of the west side and actually tie the two together.
That is exactly what we're hoping to do, that we can put an entrance there that'll be accepted by the city to allow them to go straight through there. There currently are 2 entrances that are more of just fire escape exits with panic hardware. We would like to convert those to 2-way doors to where they can use those as their entrance to the sports fields.
I said I was done, but I'll add one more thing and just say I really like these projects. They're a nice redevelopment on Main Street. That first Melody Lane change was a big upgrade. I think this looks like a nice addition too. We just want to make sure everything's done properly.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, if not, do I have someone brave enough to make a motion starting with the zone change?
I guess I'll give it a stab.
All right, Leon.
I'd like to make a motion to approve JZ21 PUD 126 rezoning to CG, approval of the preliminary plat, and approval of the easement closure.
This is Jeff. I'll second.
Greg Bowman,
Yes.
David Randolph,
Yes.
John Brown,
Yes.
Scott West,
Yes.
Leon Davis,
Yes.
David Bayer,
Yes.
Carol Linden.
Yes. Okay, that concludes all our agenda items. Since we just did the easement closure with the other one. So, any other business, Ms. Marseille?
Well, thank you all for going through that agenda, and we have another one a little bit bigger next month. So this is very exciting. Lots of activity going on in the city of Jenks, and I'm very happy to be a part of it and very happy to meet with you all. The UDO is coming along. We've had several internal meetings. We've had several external meetings. We've had lots of reading, lots of redlining, lots of rearranging and scratching our heads and discussing. And I cannot wait for you all to get your hands on it so that you can do the same thing. I meet with Jackie next week to discuss so she's taken all of the staff comments so far and she's put them together, and I'll get to peek at that next week and have those comments. She has not finalized them yet, so we'll look forward to that. There's a lot of little nuances and I feel like I just have 1,000 notes on the UDO. So I really hope when you get the opportunity to look at it, you look at it with all the years of experience that you all have had as planning commissioners and as citizens in this city, and think about it through that lens. because that's certainly an advantage that I do not have, having not been here all this time. So I appreciate your service, and I look forward to your comments on the Unified Development Ordinance. I don't know if it'll be ready to be on the agenda for comment. We had talked about doing a high overview for April. We had thought maybe we could do it in March, but it's going to be April. With that many agenda items, I will leave it up to the Planning Commission. If you want to hear it in April, it's probably a minimum of a 30-minute presentation. So considering it took us an hour and 40 minutes to get through this number of projects, I think it's probably going to take at least that long next month, and then add another 30 minutes. Totally up to you guys. If it's ready and you want to do it, let me know. I can just take a little survey now by a raising of your hands. If the staff portion is done, would you like to hear where we're at and get a report from House of Living in April? Raise your hand. Yes.
How about if can we have it, because of the length and the detail of it, can we have another special meeting just to do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
To that?
Yep, we can do that.
Yeah, if we can maybe begin parceling out the information so we can, take some time to read it versus waiting for the final product.
Yes.
Just a thought.
I thought you would already have it, but I wanted to get my initial comments to her and get that revised before you see it. But you should be able to get it very quickly. So what I'm hearing from Carol is that you all would be interested in maybe taking that spot at the second meeting in April as, Scott, what are you grinning? Commissioner West, you're grinning. So maybe you're interested in hearing about the UDO in April at the second meeting that we would normally not have a meeting at. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is it the 22nd?
Yeah.
Everybody shake their head yes?
We have our little hands up.
Yeah, I got the
Okay. Well, if it is ready, and I don't know that it will be, but if it is, then I will schedule it as a special hearing, and certainly we can meet on that. So let's see. I can't think of anything else. There's a lot going on, and I talked for a few minutes with Chairman Minden about if you want me to be present for your planning commission meetings, to have City Hall open so that applicants, or not necessarily applicants, but certainly the public, could come in and ask questions, or if you would prefer to handle it the way that City Council has. And for their online hearings, they set up a time for a couple of days where people can call in and leave comments or ask questions, and then they play them during the hearing. And so you would know in advance if you have 10 comments in 10 minutes or whatever. So also, by a raising of hands, let me know before we sign off if you are interested in me being present at City Hall, or if you want me to be virtual. Present, raise your hand.
I've got a few quick thoughts, just on the subject, if we want to talk about it. I mean, there's not many people who show up in person, so it's very different than a big city council meeting on some contentious issue. So, I mean, I don't have a problem with, if you're there, it seems like you can manage it. The comments are often pretty limited. I mean, it's rare that we have long rambling comments, quite frankly. So, it kind of seems nice to have you there, and I always want to invite public comment unless it's troublesome somehow. So I kind of like having you there for whoever might be there, just to make sure we're hearing, anyone who has anything to say. But, the voicemail thing works well, or just having them join virtually. So.
That was very non-committal, David.
Okay. Well, I'll take the Marseille. I like you there, and managing people in person. So that's kind of my vote. But if you guys don't want to do that, that's all right.
I hate to have the building open and have her come in by herself. So if she's there, then Carrie's got to make sure that things are set up there, as does Brandon. So it ties up 3 people.
Well, I'm okay with Marseille not being there, but Brandon definitely has to be there.
Well, if you want to send me a message, let me know if you think about it and change your mind, or it's really important that we're here. I'm certainly here to do what is best for you all and for the public. So I'll do whatever you feel is best in that. And I think that's it from this end.
All right. Thank you very much. May I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?